Okay, everybody, get your safety juice ready. We're about to do some dumb shit. Woo! That's actually a lie. You know, we're just a hot mess, so it makes more sense to say stuff like that. But we're going to actually test out Yardware 1.0. So,
finally,
stick around. What's up, everybody? I'm Stan.
I'm Mac.
And this is MES Tech, the hot mess of tech shows on the internet.
Yeah, we don't do well, but it's funny.
The whole reason that we started this whole channel up was a old gaming computer that I built somewhere around a decade, if not 15 years ago, that was based off of the AMD socket 939.
Yes, it was a very weathered computer.
It was a very weathered computer, that is very true. However, what we have done is we have resurrected it, brought it back from the grave. Well, kind of, but we'll get into the details of that. So the whole purpose of this isn't necessarily just to get me a gaming computer, even though the only reason that I wanted to do this was so I could play Diablo 3 with my friends. I didn't really like the performance of my iMac, it was decent, but it was only getting me like 30 frames per second. I had to downscale the resolution. I just wasn't super stoked with it, and it didn't feel quite like the gaming sensation that I had of old.
Right. So, and this is kind of where we get into the specs of your, well, Yardware 1.0, because as you guys may remember, we started out with this computer in a beige case that was awful, and then it was a box of parts in your trunk, and then we fixed the graphics card that
it didn't look like it fixed it at the end of it. You know, you might remember an abrupt end to that video. We do.
Yeah,
for sure.
It was 3 hours of, yes, that's a pain and suffering.
Yeah.
But we went through all of that, and then we found out that that motherboard had died. It was its time to go, and we understand. We're not resentful, just a bit bitter.
We accept and move on. And with that, we moved on with this DIY PC case to an ASUS A8N SLI. So I believe that it's the SLI, maybe the Deluxe. I'm not really sure because there's not a lot of information on motherboards from 13 years ago. However, we've got enough information to get this bitch running, and we can explain a few things. So first things first, the AMD socket 939, that was released back in 2004, and it remained in service until 2006. And it only really lasted about 2 years, which is what made a lot of people really kind of self-conscious about buying computer hardware, because if there's going to be a new socket every year or 2 years, what worth does your hardware have? And that was really the heyday of AMD changing things up. They went socket 939, they had 940 on the server side, and then they went to AM2. However, they did learn their lesson. When they upgraded to AM2, they went AM2, then AM2 Plus, and then AM3 was backward compatible with most of the chips from AM2 via BIOS update. AM3 Plus felt the same way until we got to the tail end of that, and then into AM4. And AM4, which has got the Ryzen platform, has been promised to be good until 2020. So if you're looking to upgrade to Ryzen, it's something that you can do with confidence.
Unlike some Intel chips.
Yeah, so that whole 1150, 1151 chipset related, not necessarily socket related thing, that's been going on for the last, 7 or 10 years. Taking a look at the chip that we've got in here, it is an Athlon 64 X2 4400. So at the time when that was brand new back in 2005, it cost $507.
For an AMD chip.
But it was faster than the Pentium D over on the Intel side.
It was. It performed a little bit better. So it was a really turn of skills because, really, man, Intel's.
It hasn't been the same since then. It hasn't been the same since then, but we're getting closer. So when we're talking about this $507 chip, I picked it up on eBay for $20. Including shipping from wherever it was out on the West Coast. We've also upgraded this to 4 gigabytes of RAM because that is the maximum that you could hold on Windows XP. The board doesn't necessarily have those limitations, but with no way really to update the BIOS currently, I can't really make it go better than that. The other thing that we've got in here, which came with the motherboard, is an ASUS 7950 GT, which is the best of the best before we got into PCI Express 2.0 cards. So it's a PCI Express 1.0, it's got 512 gigabytes of memory, and the clock speeds are around 550 megahertz on the core and about 700 megahertz on the memory itself. So compared to the 7600 GT that we fixed, the 7600 GT had 12 CUDA cores, and this has 24. So we should see almost double the performance. But the only way that we're going to be able to measure that is through a series of benchmarks.
Right.
One of the benchmarks is obviously going to be Diablo 3. What kind of settings do you have to run to do this? And if you take a look at Diablo 3 specifications, it actually calls out the 4400 X2 as the minimum recommended processor. The absolute minimum for this game, but the game was released in 2011. So that's acceptable for a chipset that was built in 2005. The 7950 is going to provide a little bit more beef than what's necessary for that particular game, but we want to go through all the DirectX 9 benchmarks And then we want to see how far we can take that 4400 processor and see where it goes in the future. But first, we have to set some baselines.
Right. Now we're going to run some benchmarks so you guys can see exactly what these things are doing, processor, GPU-wise. So see where we can go for video games, because that's what this is all about, man.
And we're going to do the old question, will it run Crysis? So we're going to figure out exactly what's necessary for it to run Crysis 1, and then we're going to kind of take things from there. We also want to do a little bit of testing as far as what the system capabilities are, basically read-write access speed on the drives that were available at that time, and figure out what we really need to upgrade in order to kind of make this something that's serviceable in the modern day. It might not necessarily be the gaming machine that we're hoping for. It's probably going to run Diablo 3 by the time we're done with it and we've taken a look at the various graphics cards, but there are a lot of different uses for an old piece of hardware like this. But let's get into the numbers and see exactly what's going on. Oh yeah, no, it may seem more interesting to watch us do these things, but I guarantee it's not. So as you can see, we've got Heaven benchmark running. We ran through a bunch of different benchmarks that are really set for this generation of computer. We've got those. You've already seen the graphs with a little bit of music that's going on.
You got it. A little bit of direct 3D help.
3D Mark 03,
Jesus.
3D Mark 05, 3D Mark 06, Heaven benchmark at DirectX 9. So all of these are running DirectX 9 because the card is only capable of DirectX 9. And we've got those scores, and we ran them at 720p and 1080p because 720p is probably the best resolution to capture that information for DirectX 9, simply because at that point in time, there weren't many monitors that were higher resolution than that. If you were gaming on a 1900 or a 1920 monitor, it was like 1900 by 1200. It was like a 4:3 resolution. So widescreen monitors like this were not a very common thing.
When was this?
So this would have been 2004, 2005, 2006.
I was like...
Don't talk about it. Don't date the video. Don't date the video. So.
Dating you.
Fuck off. So, on that note, we've got a good idea of where we are with our synthetics. We're going to do another video which is actually dedicated specifically to the games that we'd want to play in this particular generation. So you're probably going to see things like Far Cry number 1. We're going to test Crysis, which is a DirectX 10 game, but it's one of the benchmarks for any kind of graphical performance on any computer. We're also going to take a look at Diablo 3. Like I said, that's the main reason for even getting this computer back up and running. And then we might throw in other stuff like, I don't know, Oblivion or something along those lines, just to give people an idea or a sampling of the titles that were popular back when this machine should have been its heyday.
Right. And like you said, Diablo 3, we're testing stuff that's even above and beyond what you think would be probably possible with something like this. But we'll see how well those actually run. It could be pretty poor. But we'll see.
Yeah, it's kind of pretty poor.
I mean, Heaven Benchmark didn't really like to load textures at first. We had to give it a little coaxing.
That is very true. That's very true. That's one of the reasons that we're running DirectX, we're running Windows 7 on the test PC, so that way we can do DirectX 9, we can do DirectX 10, we can do DirectX 11 as we upgrade the video card to kind of do these back-to-back comparisons for what kind of performance you can actually get out of a CPU from 2006, 2005. That's kind of it for this video, guys.
Thank God.
Yeah, so as always, if you like what you see, hit the like button. If you don't like what you see, hit the dislike button. But comment down below so that way we know exactly what you guys think and then what you think we should do moving forward. We always welcome the feedback. If you like the videos and you want to see more of what we do, hit the subscribe button. We always appreciate that. And anything that we bought during here, so like the BenQ monitor that we're doing our testing on, the case, anything that you kind of think that you might want to add to your own repertoire, we've got links down in the description, so check those out. They do support the channel a little bit, so no need to buy them, but if you do choose to, we really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks again, guys. My name is Mac.
I'm Stan, and make sure you always have your safety juice.
This thing's more kick-ass than I thought it was.
A lot of things are more kick-ass than you thought they were.
I'm still mad at you.
It's fine. It's fine. It's only been a week since the last video. It's not that big a deal.